Hello to everyone in the internet, and welcome to Thursday, maggots, January 24th. I am Nathan of Washington, you're watching Culture Shock, the only show on the internet that knows how to separate an issue of culture from an issue of politics. And this is the news in 2019. Alright everybody, so Bill Clinton on the Epstien Island. This is fairly well documented, although it's mostly only from conservative sources, because probably liberals and leftists don't want to talk about it. So they're going to probably try and claim that it's fake, but I kind of doubt it. The evidence clearly says that Clinton regularly flew on Epstein's private jet to his island. Well, this does not prove he had sex with the teenage girls kept there. Why else would he go to basically a sex island? Yes, that's basically what this place was. Lawyers in the Epstein case, of course, touted his relationship with Clinton and his donations to the Clinton Foundation, as though that were somehow a mark of divinity or innocence. But Jeffrey Epstein had a private island full of Lolitas. For those of you who don't know, Lolitas are teenage girls who've essentially been used up, essentially been occasionally drugged up, costumed, and basically used for sex. They're basically teenage prostitutes. Female teenage prostitutes is a Lolita. And to be clear, I don't have a problem with teenagers engaging in sexual activity so long as they stick to their age group so that they are not risking abuse by a manipulative adult. And even then, they should proceed very carefully for fear of things like STDs or unwanted pregnancies or, all that. But Lolitaing up, that is like the very definition. Becoming a Lolita is the definition of unacceptable. That is simply not okay. Especially where drugs are involved. But this whole thing depends on whether or not the testimony of Virginia Roberts can be proven or corroborated, or even if it's genuine. There's a good chance it probably is, in this case I would say. But let due process do its job. But she says she was recruited by Epstein at the time as a 15-year-old. Based on her interview, I would say that she certainly seemed to be like she was genuinely telling the truth. Right? Like, she showed no visible signs that she was making any attempt to deceive anyone. So at the very least, she truly believed what she was saying. Therefore, there was all kinds of reason to believe that it really did happen. And you know that these rich scumbags can basically pick up pretty much anybody they want. It's really not that hard. All that money, power, and influence, they could have access to anyone they wanted. But Bill Clinton pretty much went there via private jet, otherwise known as the Lolita Express. He was registered having taken the flight 11 times, but evidence uncovered by sources stated that it was actually something more like a little over twice that much. More than 20 times. 22 times. More than 22. So he went there a lot. And I mean, this is dirty Bill Clinton. You remember that whole thing with Monica Lewinsky. So this sort of thing is really... The chances of this being true are probably very high. I mean, this is Bill Clinton we're talking about here. Like, come on. Friggin' scumbag, man. Bill Gates creates a new filter system for censoring alt news. This system basically has like a red light, green light system. Seems innocent enough until you realize that the red light sites are mostly conservative, including RT, Sputnik, Daily Mail, Breitbart, and the Drudge Report, in addition to hundreds of other non-mainstream news websites such as WikiLeaks. Oh, here we go, good old WikiLeaks. But the green light should also be something of a warning. Guess what? because it goes to Voice of America, CNN, BuzzFeed, The Guardian, New York Times, and The Washington Post, as well as all left-leaning upstarts such as Vice News and Refinery 29. Why am I not surprised? Oh boy. And the sad thing is Bill Gates is basically a neocon. And the neocons are pretty much on the same side as the left, because the neocons aren't really conservatives. They're centrists. They're left-leaning centrists. They're not conservative at all. But Gates will be introducing this feature on tons of devices without permission to break down his essential plan. Right now, it's only found to be within the Microsoft Edge browser, which is the new version of Internet Explorer. I've used Edge. It's actually greatly improved. That is back when I still had Windows. I'm on Ubuntu now. Thank goodness. I love Ubuntu, and I hate being spied on by slow-ass, overcomplicated, constantly crashing Windows. But this is an obvious, transparent censorship, plain and simple. I mean, what else is it gonna be? It's obvious that it's just more attempt by so-called conservatives, neocons, to suppress real conservatives and to continue support their friends in the left. This is quite obvious. And surprise, surprise, many of these neocons used to be liberals, so there you go. But NewsGuard is currently only integrated with it. That's what the name of this program is. NewsGuard is currently only integrated with Microsoft Edge, as I said. And apparently it's sort of down there as like a dry run to see how it works in principle. It's sort of like a proof of concept. Yeah, this is a wonderful world we live in, isn't it? And, you know, I gotta say, Bill Gates was a much better and ultimately less bitter person when Steve Jobs was still alive. His best friend in the whole world, Steve Jobs, literally made him a better person simply by being present sometimes. What Bill Gates has been since Steve Jobs has died is just... it's amazing to me what Bill Gates has turned into. Like, sure, before he was kind of a con man. Now he's a con man who's bitter and corrupt, which makes him even worse. I just want to warn everyone about this NewsGuard bullshit, because it might even up blocking me. So, I mean, just keep your eye out, and don't drink the Kool-Aid. Bryan Singer is once again accused in an almost Me Too style fashion. Like, you know, they sit on it for a while, and they all of a sudden come out later, like out of nowhere. Having sexually harassed or otherwise drugged and had sex with underage boys. That was partly true of, like, Kevin Spacey. That one, they didn't wait very long for that one. Kevin Spacey was definitely guilty. And Bryan Singer, I think it's possible. There are these parties that take place in Hollywood where teenage boys go and they get drugged up, mostly child stars. It's like, some of the child stars have spoken out, like, if it wasn't true, then why were their careers being doxxed? Think about it. But there have been supposed people seeing Bryan Singer at a lot of these parties. I don't know if that's actually true. The evidence against Bryan Singer is so completely subjective. Like, it's vague enough that it lacks a certain level of clarity. I mean, this latest string of accusations against him does make the picture a little clearer. But it's not enough that you can say for certain that he's truly guilty. But then again, since these aren't women... in our current political landscape, they really don't have much to gain from this, aside from, you know, obviously money in a lawsuit. But there's got to be a better way to do it than that. I want to think that this isn't true, because it's been well known that Bryan Singer is, you know, homosexual, and I'm tired of hearing of this conflation of homosexuality with pedophilia and also hebephilia, because those are completely different phenomena. And I'm just tired of them being conflated together. So a part of me really hopes that this isn't true, but I'm going to stick with the part of me that's saying, just wait it out. I'm going to ignore my ego and focus purely on my logical conscience. But several of them, one of them was, I think, groped at 13. A couple of them were one was drugged up and had sex at 16. Another one had more or less consensual sex at 17. So in other words, statutory rape, which I've already said is basically bullshit. But yeah, there you go. Rob Sanders, a Kentucky prosecutor, is now going hard on the alt-left for its insane behavior. About damn time. Because they have been, in the past, extremely criminal. He will prosecute for the death threats against the Covington Catholic high school kids. And the investigations are currently ongoing. Yeah, you should have seen some of the shit these people are saying. Like, one dude was saying, an unnamed Hollywood producer was saying, throw these kids screaming hat first into a wood chipper. And they're like kids, like some of them were really super young. Some of them even still had a little baby fat in their faces. I'm just like, they're like really young and innocent, and still somewhat innocent. I'm just like, and you want to go throw them in a wood chipper? What the fuck's wrong with you, dude? Why do you want to say that shit about a bunch of kids just because of their political position? You really have gone completely nuts. And it seems like the more days go by, the more insane that these alt-left maggots become. Like, their behavior is becoming to the point now where it's literally crossing into criminal territory. Right? And technically, the alt-left was crossing into criminal territory already with groups like Antifa. But a lot of people don't realize this. You can send death threats to adults and not go to jail because that's only a misdemeanor. Sending death threats to children under the age of 18 is not just a misdemeanor. It's a felony. If this investigation finds enough information, and it most certainly will, Rob Sanders will be sending you to prison, guaranteed. And one of these guys, the radio DJ and failed comedian, who talked about like possibly sexually assaulting these kids and punching them in the nuts and stuff. Yeah, they were saying about if he went to prison, he'd probably end up getting passed around as like a prison bitch. It's probably very true. Bottom line is, I don't feel sorry for them. Rob Sanders is gonna send their asses all to prison. You just can't send death threats to kids. You can't. I don't care what their position is. These kids could be literal Nazis. But the law is the law. You cannot send death threats to children. And as a societal behavior, that is simply not okay. That is simply not okay. I hope these people rot. I'm with you, Rob Sanders. Get the job done, man. Give them what they deserve. And this should send a pretty strong message to the alt-left that we're not going to put up with them any longer. For our final story today, Jonah Peretti, the CEO of BuzzFeed, basically once posed as a famous gun rights activist, John Lott, in order to create fake news stories about gun rights activists doing shit. And John Lott has actually been pressing charges for defamation and impersonation, which Jonah Peretti could possibly also be seeing some prison time. Yeah, well, I mean, when you go around doing shit like that just because you want people to lose their guns, right? Like, here's why the biggest reason, even if you don't like the idea of guns and you never want to own one, This is one of the best reasons why to never vote for these people who want this gun control. They're always lying. They're always doing crazy shit, like that one dude is threatening to drop nukes on everyone who didn't let go of their guns, and like he seriously meant it. He went completely mental. So they're liars. They're crazy. They're violent. They're manipulative, and they're often censorious. So even if you personally do not want to own a gun, there's all the reasons you need why you not vote for these people, or vote for any of their ideas. If you ever needed their reason, there's all the reasons you'll ever need. And this is just more of that same nonsense. Jonah Peretti is a lying, scapegoating son of a bitch. And he should receive the full force of the law brought down on his head. It's time to send the alt-left and hard-leaning liberals a message. We're not putting up with their bullshit anymore. We're not. We're just not. Anyway, that's it for the Culture Shock today, folks. I'm out.